Shabbat Shalom to everyone again. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking to you. Now, during the summer, there is a drop-off in religious participation. It's not just synagogues, it's not just churches. I don't know about the Islamic community, I don't know about the Buddhist community, but participation goes down, it's vacation time. And the result is that sometimes we neglect things that could give enrichment to our lives. Case in point is that we are in a period of time that is quite special and sacred in the Jewish calendar. It is known as the 3 weeks and is in Jewish calendar, in terms of mood, the saddest time in the Jewish calendar. It literally is a period of collective mourning and is connected to the most horrible moments in Jewish history. The 3-week period of mourning begins on the 17th day of the Hebrew month of Tammuz with a minor fast day, and it is to remember that in the year 70, the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans. And this period concludes on the 9th day of Av, which is the fast of Tisha B'Av, which begins tomorrow evening. On Tisha B'Av, we commemorate the destruction of the first and second temple in Jerusalem. On the 9th of Av in 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, destroyed the first temple. If you want to read about that, read the first couple of chapters of the book of Jeremiah. In the year 70, Titus destroyed the second temple. Jews can never forget these tragedies. During the 3 weeks, many Jews traditionally have no celebrations, for example, no weddings. Some people give up eating meat, drinking wine, except on the Sabbath, going to movies or concerts. On Tisha B'Av itself, the most traditional Jews, and I've seen this in Jerusalem many years ago, if you go to Jerusalem and they go to the old city on the evening of Tisha B'Av, on the ground there are these Yemenite Jews who are moaning and they're crying and of course there's a tradition of reading the Book of Lamentations. It's a time of grief, a profound grief. Now we Reformed Jews, we're always struggling with everything. And so we need to somehow struggle with what we make of all this. But let's discuss that another time. Why so much grief? Why such intense collective mourning? Because Tisha B'Av remembers the most cataclysmic event in Jewish history. The temple was the center of Jewish life. I'm not talking about this temple or the temple, Bnei Yehuda. We're talking about the temple in Jerusalem, where the center of the cult of ancient Israel was, where the sacrifices were brought, where the priests would offer the sacrifice and the Levites would help, and the people would bring their sacrifices. That was the center of Jewish life. Our entire religious life was decimated when that temple was destroyed. There was a rupture between God and Israel. The Jews wondered, had God forsaken them? What had they done to deserve this? Literally. There's no one explanation that the rabbis give for this catastrophe. The most compelling explanation was the fact that Jews had exhibited what's called gratuitous hatred, sinat chinam, towards each other that caused the society to collapse. Now, regardless of the cause, Jews no longer had this institution to connect themselves with God, and it led ultimately to the exile of the Jews. Just think about this. I was thinking, how can I describe this to you in terms of its intensity? Tisha B'Av is like what the Jewish life would be like if every synagogue in the world was simultaneously destroyed. That's what we're dealing with in terms of the profound nature of what we're trying to remember from 2,000 years ago. But when we recall the 9th of Av, when we recall Tisha B'Av, the rabbis did something that was quite intentional. They expanded its meaning. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that. They expanded the meaning, and I have something here I need. Okay, I got it. They expanded the meaning. Besides the destruction of the temple, they identified other events that happened on the 9th day of Av in the Hebrew calendar. Now, hold on a little bit. These are the things that happened, according to the rabbis, on the 9th of Av. We know the spies returned from the 40 days of Israel with a report of the land of Israel. And because they come back to Moses and they say the land can't be captured, the Jewish people go into despair and are ending up not being able to go into the promised land for 40 years. You have the destruction of the temple. You have the destruction of the second temple. You have the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Roman Empire, the last revolt, in the year 70, in the year 132. In the year 133, the Roman pagans plowed under the temple itself. They totally decimated it. In the year 1290, there was the expulsion of Jews from England. In 1492, the Inquisition, the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal began. In 1914, in the morning of August, Germany declared war on Russia, and that afternoon, Russia declared war on Germany. That, in effect, was the beginning of World War I. Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. 1942, the deportation from Warsaw Ghetto to Treblinka, the 9th of Av. 1989, Iraq walks out of talks with Kuwait. I don't know where they came up with that one. In 1994, there was a deadly bombing of the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, all on the 9th of Av. Now, we can argue back and forth, but what are the rabbis trying to accomplish? They're brilliant. What they're saying is, and I want us to hear this, it's really important that we hear this. We can't allow days of mourning to dominate our tradition. You know, we Jews have known a lot of suffering. Yeah, I get it. But that's not who we are. We should embrace the role of suffering Jews. And here's what I think that we're concerned the rabbis. How can a people who is so dominated by suffering accomplish their goal to mend the world? It gets even more interesting. Yom HaShoah, as you know, the day we remember the Holocaust, was established, not as a religious holiday, was established in Israel in 1959 by the Knesset, by the Israeli parliament, as a day to remember the 6 million. And it was decided that day because the 27th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan corresponded with the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That's why Yom HaShoah is Yom HaShoah on that date. Menachem Begin, a Holocaust survivor who fought in the underground to create Israel, a proud Jew, the former prime minister of Israel, suggested that Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, should from now on be incorporated into Tisha B'Av. Now, some criticized him. But Begin responded that Tisha B'Av, this day of tragedy that has all these dates associated with it, has traditionally been the day on which the Jewish people marked all the other major horrible events in history, despite the fact that it was a day of destruction of the Second Temple. Begin said the sages had done so because they realized that there was a limit to the number of mourning days our people could observe. He suggested that the incorporation of one day of remembrance into all the others that would emphasize on one day the destruction that we have experienced, and that would make Tisha B'Av a special day. And in fact, the chief rabbis of Israel, Ovadia Yosef and Shlomo Goren, along with Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik, approved this idea. Now, Begin's point is profound. We Jews must not collect days of suffering. We must acknowledge them. We do so on Tisha B'Av. We do so in the martyrology of Yom Kippur in the afternoon. We think about the martyrs of our people. We remember them, but we get back to work, being a celebratory people who embrace life, family, nature, Torah, and morality. Our Judaism must be a celebration of life, not an endless list of our suffering. And we certainly don't want non-Jews to see us as a suffering people. Now let me end with an observation. And I've been struggling with this for months. At our most recent confirmation class that took place on the Festival of Shavuot, our students, and some of you were there, offered eloquent statements about their Judaism, about their experience at the New Reform Temple. They're wonderful kids. They really are. Two of the students said something that pains me. They said that studying anti-Semitism was a topic that most interested them. Now, on some level, it makes sense. We focus on current events. There's a lot of anti-Semitic events that are part of what's going on in the past year. Yet since that service, I've wondered, have we failed these students? I want them to see Judaism as a celebration, not as a persecution. I want them to feel the joy of Shabbat. I want them to long for the taste of challah. I want them to have joy in sitting in the sukkah. I want them to stand joyfully under the wedding canopy, the chuppah. I want them to sit with their families around the Passover Seder and sing songs. I want them to feel joy when they read from the Torah at their bar bat mitzvah. I want them to stand in the city of David, Jerusalem, and feel our history. I want them to do deeds of loving kindness and joy. That's our goal. So on Tisha B'Av, we mourn so many things that have been tragic to the Jewish people, and we recognize the bad and then move on. Let our tradition teach us that our most noble goal is to rejoice being alive. Rejoice in our tradition. Rejoice in our mission. Rejoice in the blessing of being part of a holy people who's committed to working with other people to mend the world. Judaism teaches us that we can do great things in celebration. What else should we seek? And that's why we lift our glasses when we drink a glass of wine and shout out, L'chaim, to life. Shabbat Shabbat.